Okay, well, we're ready for phonemic awareness part 2. If you remember, last time we started talking about phonemic awareness, which are the sounds that are in words. And we talked about phonemes, which are the individual sounds within words. And that was the introduction to phonemic awareness that we started last week. This week, we're going to talk about how to identify when students have a problem, what a proficient student looks like, what a non-proficient student looks like, what kind of testing we can do, and then how do we help students. And these are the basic things we're going to look at this week. A student who is proficient in phonemic awareness can easily blend and segment words. So they can put words together and they can segment them into their individual parts. They can hear the initial, final, or medial sounds within a word, and they can manipulate them. Now remember, we looked at when you can manipulate things based on your age range, so that still applies. But students who are proficient at it have an easier time doing it. So what do we do with those students who are not proficient at phonemic awareness? And how do we identify them? And the first thing you're probably going to hear from those kinds of students is, I hate reading. I don't like it. I'm not good at it. I don't know how to read. Especially younger children will tell you, I don't know how to read. I can't read. And a lot of this comes from them not being proficient at phonemic awareness. And as we know, research shows us that's one of the best indicators of a child's success in reading later on. So phonemic awareness is really important to them. What does a student who is not proficient at phonemic awareness have trouble with? Well, first of all, they have problems with blending activities. So if I gave them a word like, if I sounded out the sounds like k, I, t, and asked them to make a word out of it, they would not be able to put the sounds together to make the word kite. They also wouldn't be able to complete substitutions for phonemes. We do this a lot with rhyming games and things like that, where we take the word mat and I say remove the M from mat and add a sound at the beginning. And they would not be able to make the word hat out of that. Sorry. They also would have a hard time making syllables out of words. How many syllables are in the word paper? I don't know. So breaking words down or putting them together would be how a student has difficulty with that. I'm going to tell you a cute story. One of my students was doing her student teaching with a group of kindergartners, and the teacher was asking the students to tell her the initial sound in words as they lined up to go to lunch. And the one little boy came up and she said, Stephen, I don't know his real name, I'm making that up. Stephen, what's the first sound in the word cat? And Stephen looked at her and he said, meow. So many students aren't getting what they're supposed to be doing when they're looking for those initial or final sounds within a word. So they have trouble rhyming, breaking words into syllables, or even trying to spell new words by their sounds when they get older. This is why testing is so important for students. Now, I know testing is really overdone in today's education, right? We test all the time and it's high stakes testing and it's difficult for students. But if we use testing in a formative way to inform our instruction, then we can benefit students, and it's more low stakes testing. We're more trying to figure out where students are and how we can help them with phonemic awareness and get better at that. There are more, but there are two common ones that we use here. Formal testing for phonemic awareness, and probably the most common one is called DIBBLES, which stands for Dynamic Indicators of Basic Early Literacy Skills, commonly known as DIBBLES. It provides two measures used to assess phonemic awareness. The one is initial sound fluency, and the other one is phonemic segmentation fluency. So those are the two. Initial sound, the test taker would give the student four pictures, name each picture, and then ask the student to identify or point to a picture that begins with the sound produced orally by the examiner. So for example, I might give a student a picture of a dog, a cat, a mouse, and an elephant. And I would say, and I would identify each picture as I put them out, and I would say, please point to the picture that starts with the sound D. And hopefully the student would be able to point to the picture that was the dog. The other part is the, phonemic segmentation fluency. And that measures the ability of a student to segment 3 or 4 phoneme words. So a word that has 3 or 4 sounds in it. So that would be like cat, and the student would say k-at. So he'd be able to segment those 3 sounds. Another formal test is called TOPA, test of phonological awareness. Now remember, the difference between phonemic awareness and phonological awareness is that phonological awareness is the broader category. It's more about all kinds of different sounds instead of just sounds and words. But this test does measure the student's ability to isolate phonemes in spoken words and understand the relationship between letters and phonemes. This test has a lot of statistics and is normalized and has standard deviations and has been validated, things like that. So it makes it a test that many school districts use. So we have those. Those are formal assessments. Informal assessments are used in the classroom every day in kindergarten and first grade to help students become more phonemically aware. This is how teachers are seeing where their students are. It can be as simple as, like I gave the example, the teacher asking the students to tell them the initial or ending sound of a word as they're lining up to go somewhere. So your book lists a bunch of activities and informal assessments that are wonderful for you to use in your own classrooms. We use these kind of tests to inform our instruction, to make things better. We try not to use these tests to so much grade students as encourage them and see where we can go to help them out. I want to include a link here, so there's a link underneath the presentation in our course shell for a Pinterest page. Pinterest has great ideas for phonemic awareness activities that you can use. One thing I know for sure is that there are a great deal of resources out there for students, and we need to find them and use them. As teachers, we tend to reinvent the wheel. Let's do it, I'll do it all again. But if we take the time to look for activities, they do exist out there. Keep in mind that as a teacher, you will never stop learning and growing. You will always be looking for new ideas, new technologies, new ways to present things, new things that you can bring into your classroom to help your students. That will never stop. As an educator, you're required to keep learning. So think about what you've learned throughout the things that we've done in this module, and what was useful to you. What are you going to take with you into your classroom? And if you need more help, where can you go from here? What resources were good? So those are things you're going to have to write about later on this week. So I wanted to make sure that you were aware that you needed to keep those things in mind. All right, so that's phonemic awareness. Next week we'll be moving on to phonics. So yay! Have a good night. Thanks. Bye.